Mrs. Rosa Daniel, Your Excellency, Ambassador Mark Ebensaw, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you and welcome to the National Gallery. I would like to thank the Cultural Academy and the initiators of the Malraux seminar for this kind invitation to speak with all of you on the subject of cultural innovations in the 21st century, staying relevant, creating value, and embracing everyone. Without question, the way in which culture is thought about, conceived, presented, and consumed has gone through rapid change within the past few years. For cultural institutions, the ongoing negotiations for relevance in our increasingly digital world and some of the challenges that Rosa Daniel had earlier shared with us has been a key challenge. So for my presentation today, I will consider how these shifts and changes and challenges that we are currently facing might, in fact, provide opportunities for us to innovate new forms of cultural presentation and experience, propose new models, and raise important considerations for sustainability of cultural institutions. Well, the biggest disruptor, I guess, that we face today is the digital. The digital revolution has disrupted everything from businesses to governments to ourselves, including how we live our lives. And one would never imagine, for example, that Alibaba is today the largest bank without a banking license because of the millions and billions of monetary transactions that they process every day, more than any bank in the world. Cryptocurrency has disrupted traditional modes of banking. Ride-sharing apps like Uber have disrupted the traditional taxi system. So our cultural institutions spared from this disruption. And someone recently asked me, in this asset-light world, would a museum consider not owning its collection, just like Airbnb owns no real estate? And I thought that was interesting to consider. We could already be seeing some signs of a virtual museum. But what would a real physical museum that collects not own its collection? Would that challenge the convention of a collecting museum's mandate? On the other hand, disruption in the art world, speaking from a perspective of visual art institutions, is not unusual. We could say that artists have always operated along models of disruption. And the trajectory of art history has been pushed forward by examples of self-disruption, taking Marcel Duchamp's Fountain as the best example of this disruption. This particular work in 1917 created an uproar in the art world when he presented an industrial object, a urinal, as an art object. And this work continues to be cited today as a turning point for many artists. Just for example, right here in Singapore, Ho Zi Nian, who is a renowned Singapore artist, internationally presented and also collected by international museums like the Guggenheim, for example, shared with me that this particular piece of work, in fact, disrupted his life. He was studying in the National Technological University in mass comms. In year 2, he decided that he was really bored with his classes, so he was skipping lectures, and one day he went to the library, browsed through some books on modern art, came across this piece of work, and he said, you know, if it is so easy to present a piece of industrial object as art, what is so difficult about being an artist? And that made him drop out of school. And we know the rest is history, so we must thank this particular piece of work by Marcel Duchamp for giving Singapore a wonderfully talented artist. And in fact, there was another artist, and this is Rikrit Tiravanich, whose work is right on our rooftop, who also shared with me that this particular work by Marcel Duchamp convinced him to become an artist as well. So it's quite amazing that a particular piece of work, just one piece by an artist, could create and cause disruption to people. Well, the growth of cities also get disrupted through technological developments or labor or consumer shifts. Case in point is Bilbao in Spain, from a thriving port city in the 60s and a major industrial town in the 80s. It started to see severe decline in jobs due to deindustrialization in the 90s. Innovative solutions are needed to address challenges like this. To stay relevant and to survive, culture has in fact come to the rescue. The development of the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao in 1997 had turned the city around and is now a vibrant destination for the arts and for culture in Bilbao. So this was the first disruption, you could say, of a traditional museum model, the museum that traveled, and that is used as a cure for a city that was disrupted by changes in its economy. On the other hand, Guggenheim Abu Dhabi is experiencing much delays, which some say is deliberate, because an institution of this nature, an American museum with a Jewish name in a Middle Eastern country, in such a prominent location at such a big scale, during such and current challenging economic times, would not be taken too well by the local citizens. But the Guggenheim Foundation has indicated that it remains committed to open and realize this transformative potential of this project as a catalyst for exchange and for expanding the narratives of art history. While the benefits of global cultural exchanges are evident, the timing and the potential downside from its scale and its associations have to be contended with. An example of a delicate nature of having to negotiate boundaries when pursuing such innovations. The other museum in Abu Dhabi, which the ambassador had mentioned, the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, has managed to open with much fanfare. By sharing art and making histories together, museums can be cultural diplomats, extending soft power to build enduring relationships. But this particular innovation that allows the Louvre, through its rich collection, through its strong brand and its management expertise, to be financially compensated for the project has also drawn criticism that museums should not be for sale. Another difficult boundary issue. Which leads me to this subject of funding, the boundary between what is ethical and what is not. For those of us who operate museums and cultural institutions, we know that the funds available can never match our aspirations. So we seek funding from various sources and could unintentionally accept funding sources that may place us in the position of financial dilemmas. At the 2014 Sydney Biennale, protesting artists forced Sydney Biennale to cut ties and the funding it received from Transfield Holdings, which manages a network of immigration offshore detention centers in Australia. The Sackler Gallery at the Met recently came under criticism too for its links to the family who owns the OxyContin opioid empire, also prompting protests by artists. Cultural institutions are caught at the borders of what is appropriate and ethical and what crosses the line. While we need to stay relevant, be creative, and be inclusive, it is a fine balancing act that has to take place. And that's where innovative ideas have to come into play. So in this environment of scrutiny and digital disruption, we find ourselves in a position that demands not only the need to balance the ethics of new means and models of sustainability, but also the need to balance the rampant democratization of art while continuing to champion art and cultural experiences. As a modern art museum, this is what we have to contend with online. So let me address how the gallery has tried to negotiate these issues. And I want to borrow this phrase from Rosa. She always says we've got to be smart about it. So, in confronting the digital and the new realities, cultural innovation through self-disruption, not accepting the status quo, might be what allows us to remain relevant in this modern age. The gallery has decided to focus its efforts in the vision of being a smart museum that can imaginatively harness the power of digital technology, empowering artists and museum professionals, inspiring connections between the artists, between art and the public, and cultivating an art-loving community that's inclusive, creative, and thoughtful. And we thought that it's easy to break it out into 3 parts, focusing on unleashing art. How do we break down the barriers and manage a museum without walls or without collection? How do we empower the citizens to participate in design with us? And how do we disrupt work, leveraging on artificial intelligence to augment our workforce? But before we embark on these, we first need to know who our visitors are, or have become, or have changed over the years. So the gallery's undertaking of a research project called Know Our Visitor, KOV, has interestingly elucidated various profiles of the museum goer that is segmentized not by demographics, but by their motivations to visit. This allows us to better understand what our audiences are looking for when they visit and allow us to integrate the visitor into the museum experience right from the very start of the journey. In fact, even before it begins. And it was very revealing to us to know that even within people of the same age group, they seek different outcomes with their visits. For example, we find that there are those who seek edutainment, while others want an immersive thrill, and others just want to be part of the community and be with their friends. And we extended this research not only to those who visit, but those who have not visited, to know why are they not visiting, so that we can better innovate to convert them to become our audience. And knowing the visitor includes mapping their journey, even within the museum, to know what resonates with them, what doesn't, where are the potential choke points, all with the view of ensuring the visit is memorable and that they will return. An example of leveraging digital to unleash art is Unrealized, which is not an exhibition, but it activates the gallery spaces as the user navigates through them, and they are notified upon entering specific locations where they are able to access customized content created in collaboration with artists like Chong, Erica Tan, and Ho Zinian, whose work you will see here. This creates site-specific art which exists only in digital form and caters to the audience group that likes to be surprised and immerse themselves in new experiences.
An old Japanese fable. There was a time when the tiger and the forest united in friendship and protected each other. When men sought to steal from the forest, they were dissuaded by their fear of the tiger. When men sought to hunt the tiger, he was concealed by the forest.
This piece of work is hanging in the DBS Singapore Gallery 1. And when you walk in, you will be activated and you can then see this video unveil itself. Where art cannot be brought to the museum in its physical form, like the Spoliarium by Juan Luna, which is a national treasure of the Philippines, all 4.22 meters by 7.65 meters, we decided to transport the audience to experience the art in its visual form, but in a manner that allows the visitor to engage with the art that the physical experience will not permit. The visitor can zoom into the work to discover the details, layering over it with information from curators, etc. This was presented at our Century of Light exhibition, which just ended yesterday. Machine learning and artificial intelligence is also disrupting our workforce, so why not make it work for us instead? We have employed a virtual personal assistant called Evie, who schedules meetings for us, and exhibition chatbot to engage our visitors on exhibitions. This was rolled out for the Colours of Impressionism show, which has been running and just ended yesterday. It saw very good uptake on the QR code scanning and the user interactions, allowing our front of house staff to have additional sharing with the visitors and also augment their role while they continue to introduce artworks to our visitors. Well, as we navigate the digital, we must also stay inclusive and not forget the physical and those who are either unfamiliar with the digital or prefers the tactile and the familiar. Our inaugural Children's Biennale that was launched in May 2017 was a program to ignite the imagination and creativity of young audiences with artworks that are specially commissioned with them in mind. The young will become the future museum goers and our cultural ambassadors. And I'm happy to share that this work, in fact, will travel. We have been approached by a museum in Germany for a collaboration. Well, inclusivity also means embracing other disciplines and art forms within a space. And during the recent Galleries Light Tonight Festival in January, visitors can enjoy interdisciplinary and multisensory cultural experiences beyond the physical artwork. One, for example, being Ming Wei's Sonic Blossom, where the Taiwanese artist, now living in Paris, by the way, employed professional opera singers to roam the gallery and give to visitors a beautiful, dedicated performance of one of Franz Schubert's 5 Lieders, an immersive and moving gift to song. Another example of interdisciplinary experience, Ayumi Paul's work, We Are We, saw the artist invite more than 60 women from around the world who had influenced her significantly to share a piece of fabric associated with a precious memory. The artist combined these fabrics to form a Japanese Boro patchwork dress, making visible the connections between people and their stories. She was performing 6 hours a day continuously for 10 days. In these 2 examples, we place the primacy on the unique value and nature of cultural experience and immersion. Well, cultural experiences can help us better navigate a world of disruption and even prepare ourselves for a rapidly changing world. The Gallery's Keppel Center for Art Education has received over 800,000 children, students, youth, and families since we opened in November 2015, nurturing them to be curious and imaginative, to become self-motivated and critical thinkers, skills that are even more important today as we face a world of disruption. And what better way for cultural institutions to contribute than be the disruptive classroom for the young and prepare them to be the change leaders for tomorrow. So this brings me to the end of my presentation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.